city of Vittoriosa. Where you are, well, Vittoriosa means the victorious city. Well, it was obviously named like this after a battle that the Knights of Malta managed to win in the 16th century. So the city was formerly known as Burgo. Burgo is the suburb, the Borgo. And then eventually after this great battle, 1565, the Great Siege of Malta, the city became the victorious city. Where you are, well, the city of Vittoriosa, it was the first seat of the Knights in Malta. We will be talking about the Knights of Malta because the city of Valletta, the capital of Malta, well, the name Valletta is the name of the French man who paid out of his own pockets for the building of the city. His name was Jean de Valette, so Mr. de Valette. In the 16th century, after the victory of this great battle, he decides to build a new city, and this is how the city we're touring this morning came into being in the 16th century.
What was he, the president or something? How did he...
Well, his title was a Grand Master, and the Grand Master is equivalent to a president. He was the head of state, so to say.
And who appointed him?
Napoleon? Well, to become a Grand Master at the time, the Grand Master was elected. Of course, the knights themselves would elect their big boss, and they would be elected from an assembly, from a parliament.
Oh, so he was a knight. He was a knight.
Yes, he was the big boss of the knights, called the Grand Master. Mr. Valletta, Mr. de la Valletta. In fact, the story of the Knights of Malta is quite interesting because the story didn't start in Malta, nor it finished in Malta. And you know the origins of the Knights of Malta, actually it was a business plan.
Down just a little bit. Can you turn it down a little more, please? Just a little.
Is that better?
No, you can't hear anything.
That's better, okay.
Yeah, that's better.
So the origins of the Knights of Malta is Jerusalem. It's actually a business plan because in the 11th century there were 4 monks, 3 Italians and a French monk, based in Amalfi, next to Naples in Italy. And these 4 men had a brilliant idea to go to Jerusalem, build a hospital to look after the pilgrims. Well, keeping in mind that the Catholic pilgrims visiting the Holy Land in the 11th century would walk all the way down to Jerusalem. So imagine someone leaving France, Italy, Germany, walking all the way to the Holy Land. Having a hospital there to look after their health was a brilliant idea. So the first Knights of Malta were the Hospitaliers of the Holy Land. At the same time, the Knights Templars, and I am sure you have heard about the Templars were looking after the safety, the security of the pilgrims. So the Templars were the warriors, whilst the Knights of Malta were the Hospitaliers. Now what happened in Jerusalem is that with the Crusades, the Muslims won the battle. The Knights of Malta, being Catholic, they were expelled. So out of Jerusalem they went to Cyprus. Once again, a while later, they were attacked by the Muslims. Kicked out of Cyprus, they went to Rhodes, one of the Greek islands. On the island of Rhodes, the Knights settled for 189 years. But then again, there was a Muslim invasion and the Knights were expelled. And you know, this is when the Knights came to Malta. They came to Malta immediately after Rhodes. So once they were expelled from the islands of Rhodes, the Knights ended up here. When they got to Malta, there was only one thing that existed in the Grand Harbour. Well, there was a castle, which I will be showing you later on. The castle became the seat of the Grand Master, of the Big Boss, whilst the Knights settled in the city of Vittoriosa, where your boat is berthed. City of Vittoriosa was too little for the Knights, so they built another 2 cities. Then eventually the Muslims came here as well. They launched this attack on the Knights, but this time the Knights managed to win. And immediately after the victory of the battle, Mr. Lavalette decides to build a new city. So this is how the city of Valletta was built in the 16th century. You'll be seeing this morning that the knights built their most important buildings in this fortress city. And amongst the most important buildings, they had a palace for the Grand Master, they built a cathedral for the knights, a hospital, and other houses for the knights themselves. So this is what we'll be doing this morning. We're just going for a little stroll in the historic center of Valletta for you to see.
So after they were kicked out of Jerusalem, what was their purpose then? What did they do then?
Well, they were still helping the pilgrims going to the Holy Land. You know, even though they had to move on an island, they were still helping, because by time the Knights of Malta developed a navy. So it was the navy of the order that was safeguarding, that was patrolling the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, the main job of the knights eventually became patrolling the Mediterranean Sea and fighting non-Catholics. So that was the main job immediately after Jerusalem.
Did the Venetians ever try to take Malta?
No, because Malta, of course, under the knights was Catholic. The Venetians were Catholic, so there was no threat.
Where did they get their money?
Well, the Knights of Malta, to be part of this club, one had to be rich and noble for 4 generations from both maternal and paternal sides.
Wow.
So they were wealthy as a starting point. But then, of course, since they were fighting non-Catholics, if you find a boat, you know, a Muslim boat, you attack, and of course you'd bring anything on board you take. So this is how the Knights of Malta were actually became richer and richer.
They weren't priests or anything. They weren't celibate. They had families and all.
No,
that.
they didn't have families.
They did not?
No, no. The Knights of Malta had to vow chastity.
Jesus.
Well, chastity with moderation.
But then they were not allowed to have children either.
Well, officially they had no children.
Right.
Officially.
Because the order wanted their money when they died. It was like a priesthood, right?
Absolutely, yes. Once, as you said, if a Knight of Malta would pass away, you know, its fortune was passed on to the organization. So the organization was inheriting all the wealth of its members. But we also say that it was chastity with moderation, because when the knights got here, 1530, prostitution, for instance, shot up. Prostitution multiplied by 10 in a year, the year where they came here. And it's normal, you know, you have bachelors, the wealthiest sons of Europe, living in a harbour town. So of course the scenario was set, and it's the ideal scenario for prostitution.
Or for families.
What?
Or for families.
Yeah.
But they were not allowed to have some, yeah?
They were not allowed. You know, they were not allowed. There was another reason as well, because in the old days, the Catholic noble families of Europe, and this happened all over Europe, they would do the same thing. The first son, the heir, had to inherit the family business. So the first son would inherit en bloc all the fortune of the family. Inheritance was not divided in Europe. So since number one got everything, you had to find something for your other sons. So usually the second son of the noble family would become a priest, whether he liked it or not, and the third son would be a soldier. Now the third son they would send either to the Templars, to the Knights of Malta. You know, they were spoiled for choice. They had different organizations, and many of them ended up in Malta. You know, the girls had pretty much the same fate. If you were the daughter of a noble family, you would either be married, and in that case it's the parents who would choose the ideal husband for yourself. If you were not married, you automatically was sent to a convent. That's how it worked. Pete, no one.
So were the Templars? The Templars, were they here?
No, the Templars, it's a completely different organization, and they never came to Malta. Actually, the Templars, the organization, came to a stop, came to an end in the 13th century.
Yeah, the Pope got rid of them.
When Philippe le Bel, the King of France, together with the Pope, decided to, put an end to this organization because they were becoming too powerful for the taste.
What about Opus Dei? Where are they around here?
We do have something on the other side of the harbor, not too far from here actually. So just on the other side of the harbor. We're approaching Valletta.
What do you have on the other side of the harbor, Opus Dei?
Pardon?
What do you have on the other side of the harbor?
There is the branch of the organization of the Opus Dei.
Oh, the clubhouse.
Yeah, the clubhouse, exactly.
Look at those things.
This is the suburb of Valletta, Floriana. Floriana is the name of the military architect who designed the walls around this peninsula. And you see all the flags because at the moment there's a state visit. There's the president of Austria visiting Malta.
Look at the gate.
I saw the Austrian flag.
Yeah, that's why the Austrian flag is up. So the Austrian president arrived yesterday and he's here till tomorrow. So meeting our president, prime minister.
Do most people speak English on the island?
Absolutely yes. We all speak Maltese, which is the official language of Malta. So if I had to talk to our driver, I'll talk to him in Maltese, but we all speak English, and the majority would also speak Italian. So three languages.
And so what do they speak in school?
In school is Maltese, up to university level, and then university lectures are held in English. For the simple reason that we do have a lot of European students studying in Malta, and of course it wouldn't be easy for them to follow a lecture in Maltese. So university level is English and the rest is in Maltese. Well, I've asked Peter, our driver, to take us around Valletta before he will drop us off in the, as close as possible to the center to have a look around. It's nice to go around Valletta so that you see the strategic position of the city. Well, the entrance to Valletta is further down on the right, so that you will literally have a gate. Because in the old days there used to be a drawbridge to close the city. Then on either side of this peninsula, of this piece of land, there is a harbour. We're gonna see first the leisure harbour, and as we turn, you'll be seeing the grand harbour where your ship is berthed. On to the left, that's Independence Monument. See, 21st September 1964. The day when Malta got its independence.
You want a picture of that, Barry? You gotta tell us stop if you want a picture.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for it, I guess.
Would you like to take the picture? Not easy to stop here, but...
You gotta tell. Well,
I'm gonna just start shooting out the window.
You can't. It's got some kind of shade on it. You can shoot that. Is that the Grand Hotel there?
Well, there are two big hotels at the entrance of Valletta. The one on the right is the Phoenicia. It's a 5-star hotel. It's actually the first 5-star hotel to be built in Malta. The building dates back to the 1930s.
Maybe we'll sleep there.
Beautiful garden at the Phoenicia Hotel, because the wall you see on the right goes all the way down to the sea.
Wow.
It's the garden of the Phoenicia.
Who owns it?
It's a half Maltese and half British firm that owns this. And then within a few moments you'll be seeing on the left the Excelsior Hotel.
I have a friend staying at the Grand Hotel. I want to find out where that is.
Well,
Go see him.
we do have a Grand Hotel, but on the island of Gozo. So office upon down. Well, onto our left-hand side, you can already see from here the leisure harbour.
He's staying at the Excelsior.
So here, he's staying here on your left-hand side. This is the Excelsior. The Excelsior has a yacht marina, as you can see. There's one sailing boat on the left, And from here you can see the modern towns of Malta and the leisure harbour. The leisure harbour is a smaller harbour, smaller than the Grand Harbour, because this has 4 bays, whilst the Grand Harbour has 5. So most of the yachts are actually berthed here. And then you'll be seeing within a few moments on the left, as soon as we move, that in the middle of the harbour there's an island. And on this island the Knights of Malta built a fortress and an isolation hospital. And in the old days, all foreigners coming to Malta had to spend 40 days in isolation in this hospital. So the quarantine, 40 in Italian is 40. So that stands for the 40 days.
So that's the Excelsior Hotel has its own marina?
Yes, has a small yacht marina, what you're seeing down below us.
Spend the night there one night. Oh, pick Don up.
And here you see the island on the left. The building with the arches is the isolation hospital. So that's where the ships would berth over there alongside. You know, offload passengers, spend 40 days, and then they were free.
Give me the camera. I'm going to open the door real quick. Oh, you brought the giant thing in.
Cool.
Too big. You got another one, I hope. All right.
I want to go for the detail.
What's that?
I want to go for the detail.
It's much. How are you going to shoot? Never mind. Go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay. Good.
Thanks. How are you going to shoot the buildings in the old city with that giant thing?
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And you see onto the right hand side, they're at the moment cleaning 15 kilometers of fortification walls that were originally built in the 16th century. Some 18,000 slaves were on the job to build the fortifications of Valletta.
That's an even better picture there. That's the church and the hospital, huh?
So you have the fortress on the left. At the time it would hold a garrison of 500 soldiers. It's Fort Manuel. Manuel is the man who paid for the building of the fortress. So some more fortifications here onto the right hand side. In fact, if you look carefully here onto the right, well, they're preparing for summer. But you see the coffee shop here, built in the width of the fortifications. If you look back, you see the thickness of these walls that were built in the 16th century. With regards to all the buildings you'll be seeing onto the right hand side, a good percentage of these apartments were completely destroyed during the Second World War. Well, at the time we were still a British colony, and of course being a British base in the middle of the Mediterranean, surrounded by the enemy, you know, the Germans and the Italians were in Sicily, the Germans and the Italians were in North Africa, and both of them were bombing Malta on daily basis. And the target of the Germans and the Italians was the city of Valletta. Well, the city of Valletta, for the simple reason that the harbors, the 2 harbors, housed the British Navy. British Navy was here. Submarines were attacking Sicily. Submarines were departing from Malta, and this is why the city of Valletta was heavily bombed during the Second World War. You know, 65% of whatever we'll be seeing this morning in Valletta was destroyed by the Germans and the Italians during the war. So most of the buildings here onto the right hand side were rebuilt.
How do all these people sustain themselves? I mean, what is the industry here?
Well, number 1 is tourism.
Well, obviously.
Number 2 is harbor activity. Number 3 is the service industry. And we do have a lot, for instance, of call centers. If you call the bank in America, most probably you'd be calling someone in Malta.
Really?
So we have a lot of call centers, we have a lot of casinos online, you know, online gambling casinos, and they're mainly Swedish companies operating from Malta.
It's not a tax haven like Monaco, though, is it?
No, but the tax regime is one of the best you can get in the European Union. So it is attracting a lot of Europeans, you know, wanting skilled labor to invest.
Probably a
in
lot
Malta.
less expensive than to live here than in Monaco.
It is much cheaper, yeah, absolutely. And the maximum one can, you know, tax-wise, the maximum you can pay is 35% in Malta. So that attracts a lot of Europeans, especially, to
You'll have
invest.
the French flying down here if that Hollande gets elected. 75%. They'll be moving.
Are there any limitations about coming and living here and buying
This is
property?
a perfect
Can anybody
example
do
of
it?
low taxation. How
Well,
well
since we
works.
have joined the European Union, any EU national can
Right.
buy property in Malta. If you do not hold an EU nationality, then it's a little bit more complicated. And they try to make it a bit difficult for the simple reason that 400,000 people on a small island like ours, it's already a lot.
What about Americans?
Well, Americans, you would fall, of course, under the non-EU citizens. So you can buy property, but they try to complicate a bit things.
They want to make sure you got a bunch of money.
Exactly. Basically, it boils down to money.
They don't want any tramps running around here, backpackers. Huh?
So if you're rich, wealthy, and handsome, we accept you.
Well, I fit all three categories. It's huge, the city. Let's just check it out.
Yeah, we're just going around the city, and now we're getting to the Grand Harbour. So you'll be seeing the entrance to the Grand Harbour on the left. The building on the right, this long hall, is one ward, because the building on the right was another hospital for the Knights of Malta. Well, they would put 600 patients per ward, and there are 3 wards in this hospital. Whilst onto the left, there's the entrance to the Grand Harbour. We're going to start our walking tour of Valletta from the upper Baracca Gardens. And I like to start off with the gardens because we have beautiful views of the harbour.
Fantastic. Wow, this is going to be incredible.
You know where the fireworks barge is going to be for?
It will be in the middle of the harbour here.
Maybe
This harbor,
Yes, very close to where you are.
we can bring our boat here?
You have to be careful because you'd have to ask the port control where you can berth if you intend to leave your pontoon. Because of course the barge will be in the middle of the harbour, and for security reasons there will be zones where you can berth and other areas where you cannot, of course. So you better ask either the yacht marina, they will give you the advice, or you call on the radio, you know, to Valletta Harbour.
So we have to get arrangements to permission to go in there and watch.
Well, if you're staying on the pontoon where you are, you can see the fireworks, no problem.
No, it's over here on this side, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's on the
No.
other side of that castle.
Your boat is berthed
Right.
further down on the left. You'll be
Yes.
seeing the Maltese Falcon in a
Yes.
few moments,
Yes,
and you're
yes,
just
yes.
behind it, right?
Right.
Now the barge will be, I would say, a bit further left here.
Yeah,
So the fireworks you would be able to see, no problem. You're berthed on the left-hand side. You see behind the Maltese Falcon.
But the fireworks are on the to the left on this bay here, right?
Right.
Yeah, you see the castle. You're
Yeah.
on the right of the castle,
Uh-huh.
and the barge will be on the left.
Yeah, so the castle will be in the middle.
So we won't see it
Oh
all.
well, I know I know an access path to go to the other side of the castle.
But also from here.
Yeah, I want to see it from the boat.
Push it.
I mean, I want to see it from the yacht.
Well, we can probably anchor back here.
Okay, well, they'll have to make the arrangements.
Yeah, you better ask where you can berth and where you cannot berth, because most probably you will be better off if you stay on the pontoon. Because for security reasons, they won't let you, of course, berth close to the barge. And if the cut-off line, so to say, would be next to the cruise liner further down, then you'll be better off where you are on your pontoon. So you better check on that.
Sure.
We'll have Melita deal with that.
I'm gonna show you today. The place I found is really ideal. It's close to the boat. Walk.
Yeah, but you want to get different angles. Don't you stick the dinghy down?
That would work. Why did they build, I don't know the architecture, they build these houses with the residences with the protruding bay windows.
What light is?
I gotta see when I'll point it out.
Looks like the one in our apartment in Paris. It's the same thing. It brings in more light.
No.
And so what does real estate go for here?
Well, depends where and what you buy, but a starting price for a basic apartment in an area which is okay but not a luxurious area would be around 150 to 175,000 euros.
And how many square meters would that be?
And that would be around 60 square meters.
Not bad.
So it's about
So that's not bad. That's about
Yeah.
what is that?
it's like
6,000 square feet. Is that?
No, it's 600 square feet.
no, but I'm breaking it down per square foot with the cost.
So 600 square feet, 175,000. That's 300 a square foot. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's about
250 for Europe. That's pretty good. I might mind something like that in Paris. 600,000 euro.
Yeah, you're right. See Stuart to the right? That looks just like the Paris apartment. The windows.
Very similar.
Do you have any green areas around?
Yeah. Not in the harbor district though.
What I mean, the city in general.
In the city, no. The city, no, because Valletta is a fortress, and when it was built, it was forbidden by law to even have a garden. You know, it's a fortress, so there's no room and there's no water.
So only hotel has the garden, yeah?
Well, and the hotel is outside the city. The Phoenicia Hotel is outside the city.
Okay.
There's the Venetian right there.
Yeah.
So where did they get their food from?
Well, at the time of the Knights, of course, most of the food was either grown locally outside the city walls, or it was shipped in by the Knights.
But now, what do you do?
Nowadays, we produce around 40% of what we consume, and the rest is imported.
So you have some land
Oh yes, but not in the city, not in the harbor area.
that
The
produces...
island is divided into two. The south is the industrial and built area. The north of Malta is greener, more fertile. That's where the beaches are. That's the agricultural part of the island.
I'd like to get a picture of our boat from up
And you
here.
can even go if
Yeah,
you.
we'd
if
like
you
to get a picture of our boat from up here.
Yes, what we're doing is we're gonna stop a bit further up, and the best pictures you can take are from the gardens.
Okay.
We're there in 2 minutes basically, but that's the best picture you can take, better than here. And you see within the walls of the city there's the central bank of Malta here onto the left hand side.
There's got to be fresh water here too, huh?
Well, we do have a natural spring, but we have no rivers nor mountains.
Right. So during a siege, they had to have water. I mean,
Yeah, during the siege they had water from the natural spring, and they had water because all the houses have a well.
cisterns, huh?
Exactly. Nowadays we have to desalinate seawater. So
Really?
Yes.
That's kind of takes a lot of power, huh?
That takes 70% of the production of one of the power station goes just for the desalination. So we'll be stopping over here. We'll go to the garden so that you can
What
take
did
your
they do
pictures.
before desalination?
Well, before desalination it was not a problem because the population was less numerous and we had no tourists. So the problem started with tourism, and in the last century or so when the population, you know, started
Because
growing.
desalination on an industrial scale is what, 20 years old? I mean, it's not. Is that right, Chris?
Well, we have a we used to distill water
Distill,
before,
yeah.
you know, and that's 19th century already. So we'll be stopping somewhere here. We'll just try to find a spot where we stop. You can leave whatever you wish in the car, and then eventually I will call Peter to come back for us. M'għandix idea kemm ħandum.